Thank you so much for joining us today as we're talking with Becky about crafting a sustainable marketing strategy, which is one of the most important things you can do. As we get started today, we have a few technical considerations for you. We are recording today's event and we will send that out in an email with the slides. So don't worry about taking tons of notes. You'll be able to look back on this recording for reference and share the slides with anyone who may also find this information useful. The other thing we want to make note of is if you could just take a moment to find the chat panel at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Go ahead and use the drop down to select all panelists and attendees and drop us a note in there. Let us know where you're calling in from today. We'd love to know and say hi to everyone. We have our friend Denise on from Cincinnati. I'm seeing Esther Derby, Bill in Minneapolis. These are going so fast. Maggie King, Richmond, Virginia. Sheila, Phoenix, welcome. Oh, we have Zaza from New York. Frankenmuth, Michigan, Indianapolis, Montana, Florida, Utah, Vermont, all over the place. All right, so thank you again so much for joining us. As we get started, I would like to introduce, for those of you who may not know, Becky Robinson. Becky is our founder and CEO of Weaving Influence. And for those of you who may not know about Weaving Influence, we have partnered with business book authors and we have helped launch over 100 books since 2012. Here are some of our books here, which is amazing to see. We have all of them up on our wall in our office, which we sadly have not been to in a while, but it's always good to see all of our friends up there on our wall. And we also, I just want to touch quickly on a couple of things about Weaving Influence. We have something that's really unique to us as a company is the networks that we offer. And there's 3 highlighted here: Hometown Reads, Lead Change Group, and Team Buzz Builder. We're really proud of those networks we've cultivated over the years, and they're a really big asset to our clients and our authors when we help launch books. And then we have a little map there at the bottom to show our global reach, which we've also worked really hard to cultivate, and we're really, really proud of that as well. And then finally, before we get started with today's content, for those of you who might be interested in what we do, here's a little bit of a breakdown of the different services that we worked with authors on in 2019. And with that, I will leave it to you, Becky. And one last quick thing, we will be back at the end for Q&A. So as we go through today's event, please just leave any questions in the chat and we'll get to those at the end.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. It's so fun to be here with all of you, and we're really excited about helping partner with authors and thought leaders to craft marketing strategies that are sustainable. And we'll talk about that as we go. But the most important thing as you want to craft a marketing strategy is to get very clear about the value that you hope to bring to the world. That could be value that you hope your business will bring, value that you hope your book will bring, value that you hope your thought leadership brand will bring. And so anytime we talk about crafting strategy, we always want to start with branding. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions that folks have about branding or what branding is. So basically, you want to think about the value that you want to bring to the world and make sure that it's recognizable to people, that it's memorable to people, and that it's relatable for people. And you definitely want to make sure that people understand what you do in the world. So at Weaving Influence, for example, we really want to be known as the people who launch books. We are the book launch people, but it's not the only thing that we do. So as you start to think about crafting a marketing strategy, you want to think about making your brand recognizable, memorable, and relatable. And before we go any further, I do want to just drop in a quick poll. I'm curious, for those of you who are on the call, do you have a written marketing plan? So if you could take a quick moment and access the poll and tell us yes or no. There's no shame here. I don't know who's answering yes or no. It would be my encouragement to you that having a marketing plan in writing is helpful for a number of reasons that we'll touch on throughout today's broadcast. So again, no shame if you don't have a written marketing plan. I will own that until about 2 weeks ago, when I tasked Aubrey with writing a marketing plan for our company, we did not have a marketing plan in writing either. And props to Aubrey for getting that put into writing for us as a company. So I'm going to go ahead and close up the poll, and it looks to me like only about 22% of you have a written marketing plan and 78% of you do not. And does a Post-it note count, Nate? Maybe. I suppose it depends on what's written on it. And Greg is asking, really, if you're asking, really, Greg, is it true that our company didn't have a written marketing plan until a couple of weeks ago? Yes, really, we didn't. So I'm going to share those results with you, and then we can dive back in. The good news is that I'm going to give you a few ideas today that will help you in crafting a written marketing plan. And the very first thing to get really clear about is that question of what's the value that you hope to bring to the world. Quite often when we're working with clients, this is an area that we dive into quite a bit because many are not clear about what they want their brand to be. And there are lots of factors as you're thinking about your brand. You want to think about who your target audiences might be, so who your message is for, getting clear about the people that you want to reach. So again, to use our company Weaving Influence as an example, I would say our target audience is authors and thought leaders and people who have an important message to share with the world. So you want to get clear about your own target audiences, the people that you want to reach with the value that you want to bring to the world as you begin to craft strategy. So something that branding is not. Branding is not about projecting an unrealistic ideal or crafting a false impression or hiding your personality. So even though branding is something that you want to identify and clarify, it's really about who you actually are. And the closer you can get to your brand being your authentic self, the more successful you will be in sharing your brand with the world. So what branding is who you are. It's what differentiates you. It's expressing your unique personality through your online presence, and it's the value that you add through your life and business. So really quickly for interaction, if you do have your brand in mind that you can share it quickly in the chat, I would invite you to share that. What is the value that you hope to bring to the world? If you want to take a moment to share that with all panelists and attendees in the chat, if you're clear about what that is. Aubrey mentioned that we do have a friend on the line, Esther Derby, and I spoke with her last week. And one of the things that we were talking about related to her work is that she's known a lot in the Agile world. Esther, I hope it's okay for me to use you as an example. But really her work is a lot more than Agile. So one of the ideas that we had was really thinking about how we can get beyond Agile and bring her ideas to anyone who wants to bring about change in their organizations. So Maggie is sharing that her branding or her value that she wants to bring to the world is to entertain. Maggie, I would push on that a little bit and encourage you to entertain about what or to whom. The more specific you can be with your brand, the better. Denise is on the line. She wants to eradicate bullying through the Louis brand. I'm surprised, Denise, I don't see love included there. Anna is saying that she plans to edutain folk about the power of love in the Black community through her romances. Dick is here, and he would like to build enduring, great organizations. Very powerful. And so thanks to those of you who are sharing. Some of you are remembering to share to all panelists and attendees. Others are only sharing to me as a panelist, but I'm encouraged that many of you are able to articulate your own brands and the value that you hope to bring to the world. That's the first step in having a sustainable marketing strategy. And I would encourage you, again, for the 80% of you who don't have that written down, you could start by crafting a short paragraph or bullet points about your brand, what it is, and the value that you hope to bring to the world. So thanks to many of you. So as you start to think about crafting a sustainable marketing strategy, you may be a little bit overwhelmed with all the digital marketing possibilities that there are. And this graphic that I'm sharing right now gives you a glimpse into some of the components and the strategic priorities that you can put into your marketing plan. But one of the things I want to remind you of is that your own website is the most important part of your your digital marketing strategy. So your website is the only place that you own and control. And so it's the place that people can get to know you in the best way. So this graphic at the very center of it, you see a house. That house represents your website. Your website is your home online. Now, next to your house, there's a very cool mailbox. We still walk to the mailbox down our driveway every day to get physical mail. That's very slow in coming during the time of COVID. Now, you don't have a mailbox literally on your website, but one of the things that you want to be able to do is that when people get to your website, you want to be able to convert those folks to your permission-based email marketing list and stay in touch with them. So if you don't already have an initiative planned to grow your email marketing list, it's one of the most important components of your digital marketing strategy. And there's some other components that our team talks with authors and clients about. We talk about social media strategy, about network mobilization strategy, about creative differentiators that you can use, which would be anything unique, maybe a podcast or some other kind of content that you might want to create that's different in the world that helps to bring your message to the world. And then that outside circle represents digital publicity. Now, you may not have all of these, you may not need all of these, and certainly if you want to craft a sustainable strategy, you need to pick the ones that will help you reach your goals in the world. So I realize I'm going really fast because we only have 30 minutes and I want to bring as much value to you as I can, but I'm going to take a breath. So once you've identified your brand and you've thought about the value that you want to bring to the world, I'm going to encourage you to think a little bit backwards about this. And you might think it's unusual that I jump straight to measuring success, but really measuring success has to do with setting goals. So you really want to think about what does success look like for building your brand in the world and bringing the value that you hope to bring to the world. And I have a number of possibilities here that I'm going to run through, and I'll be curious if you'd like to share with us in the chat which of these resonate most with you. So for those of you who might be authors, and it seems like there are a fair number of authors on this call, one of the metrics that authors often use is the metric of book sales, or the metric of the number of books they are able to get into the world. Another possible metric, again, this is author specific, would be the number of Amazon reviews they might have for their book, which can be important social proof. You may see the overall metric being the revenue that your business is able to create in any given month, quarter, or year. And that may be the way you measure the success of your marketing plan. Obviously, it's an important one. You might measure your success by the results in your business, new opportunities for whatever it is that you do in the world. For many of our clients, that's coaching, training, and consulting. Increase in web traffic. So that can be an indicator of the success of your ability to reach people through your marketing efforts. So you may consider that to be one of the metrics that you want to look at. Here are a few more. I actually have 3 slides of metrics. So this one is a bit harder to measure, but some authors and thought leaders really have this intangible that they want to reach, which is growth of your brand or your thought leadership. Again, there may be a hard number that you can look at to see if you're growing your brand's influence in the world, but many people will say that this is what matters most to them. You may want to think about the reach of your ideas in message and measure that by the number of placements that you might have in media outlets, both the quantity and the quality of those wins. Here's one for you. What about your enjoyment of the experience? You know, for so many people, marketing is not something they enjoy. And so you might judge or measure the effectiveness of your marketing strategy by how much you enjoy the experience. Here's one. Some people really care about subjective feedback. So if you've identified the value that you want to bring to the world and you hear from people, either in writing or through their voices, that your work is making a difference, that can be one measure of the success of your marketing plan. Social media buzz is another potential measure of the success of your marketing plan. The new connections that you're able to add on social media channels could be a measure that you want to use. The list growth that you're able to achieve with your email list is another. So I'm going to pause for a moment and take a look at some of the comments in chat. So Virginia mentions the number of books out there in Amazon reviews as being an important metric. Ted said that an important metric is the number of people who read the books, either buying them or checking them out from the library, and income is a secondary consideration. So thanks for that. If any others of you would like to share in the chat about the metrics that matter to you, the main reason why metrics are so important is that any type of activities that you embark upon to market your brand or your business need to track back to those metrics. And so you always want to be thinking about, are the activities that I'm doing on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, are those actually driving the results that I want? And if not, that might be a clue that you need to think about some different marketing activities. So a couple of more comments. Todd says web traffic. Denise says the number of people reading and giving feedback, and how many schools buy large quantities. Thanks, Virginia. I'm glad that the subjective feedback comment resonated with you. And Dick, thanks for saying this is a good conversation. So Victoria says, have my books made a difference when people think about and study the subjects, which is a really great measure. So let's talk about sustaining energy for long-term marketing. One of the things that I've learned the most in my journey as a business owner and helping authors and thought leaders over the last 8 years is that when you first get started thinking about a new marketing plan, there is always a lot of energy. And I don't know if you noticed, I'm a pretty energetic person. But what often happens is people have a lot of big ideas and goals, and they may make a commitment to dozens of activities, and then the reality sets in, and the reality is creating consistent marketing efforts takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of money, and quite often those big and broad plans that people have eventually could lead to them doing nothing. So it's really important to me that I have a realistic view with our clients and with those I'm able to help with really thinking about what might be sustainable. So I gathered a few tips for you today about how to sustain your energy for marketing over the long term. The first one is to consistently show up with value. And consistently is a word that you can interpret in whatever way you might like. And it may be different at different times. So at the beginning of my journey, consistent to me meant blogging multiple times in a week. Which hasn't been sustainable as I've grown my business. But I do consistently show up with value, and what that looks like has shifted over time. So what you want to do is you want to be able to create a sustainable pace, which has to do with both time and money. And as you start with a new marketing plan, you want to implement actions that you can repeat over time. So often that might mean that you need to start small and then add as your energy or income or other capability increases. Oh, shoot. I can only see the chat. I cannot see my slides. Okay. So the other thing that you definitely want to do is invest in the marketing activities that you love. So quite often what happens is we think that there are certain things that we must do or that must be a part of our marketing plan. They are not the parts we love. We commit to them and then we fall flat. So what you want to do is think about what are those activities that you enjoy with marketing. One of the things I most enjoy is being on a webinar like this and interacting with people in the chat and showing up live. And so one of the things that we've decided as a team is that we're going to have a marketing focused webinar every month for the rest of the year because this is something that I love. Monthly is a pace that I can sustain. If I said I was going to do it weekly, I might not be able to sustain that. So think about and put into your marketing plan those activities that you love. Now, if there are some activities that you don't love that still have to be done, then I would encourage you to consider outsourcing those or hiring them out to an agency like ours or ask for help. Now this third thing is so important. I hope you're listening. That's not it. Shoot. Okay, well the thing that's so important that isn't on my slide is if there are things that you don't love that you cannot afford to outsource or hire out, let go of them. You do not have to do everything. I don't know how I missed that on the slide. Maybe it's on another slide. So you want to really divide the marketing activities that are nice to haves into 3 categories. So the ones you love that you will do yourself. For those of you who are listening, maybe you're on my Friday email. If you are and you enjoy it, would you go ahead and tell me that in the chat? So if you are on my Friday email list and you enjoy receiving it, you can tell me that in the chat. I love writing those Friday emails. So I used to outsource those when things were busier before COVID. Now I've decided that those are part that I love. And so I write those myself. And so there are parts that I outsource. Some of my social media is done by other people who craft that content and get it out on my channels. So think about those three categories: the parts you love that you can commit to, that you can sustain, the parts that you don't love that are still necessary that you can outsource or hire out, and then the parts that you want to let go of. What you also want to do is think about quarters and years. So when I tasked Aubrey with writing a marketing plan for our company, we outlined what we're going to do this quarter, and then we have some longer term goals as well. Thanks to all of you who love my Friday emails. Tess, I can make sure that you get on that list, no problem. I think because you registered for this webinar, you might automatically get on your on the Friday email list, but we'll make sure that Tess, you and Gabrielle, who both said you'd like them, we'll make sure you get on that list. I will own that I don't always make it. There are some Fridays that I miss, especially in the summer when the pool is warm and the sun is hot. Thanks to those of you who want to get added to the Friday list. Okay, so this Dilbert cartoon I found, let me know which group I should stop working on: essential, critical, and must have. That represents an attitude that people often have about marketing, that it's all essential, that it's all critical, that it's all must have. Now, if money were not an object, I would agree. It's all essential, critical, and must have, but most people don't have unlimited funds and time, and so you have to really get clear about what you can let go of. So I want to encourage you today to take some steps towards your goals, which includes being realistic about what you can get done. And what you want to do is think about what are the daily, weekly, and monthly activities that you can sustain. Think about your resources, people, finances, and time. Set some calendar reminders as checkpoints on your journey so you can check your progress. Find some accountability or support. Find out if the activities that you're implementing are actually effective, and measure those results against the goals that you have, and celebrate your successes as you make the progress that you want to in the world. We are going to pause now for questions, and I'm going to stop sharing my slides, I think, for a moment. And Aubrey's going to come back. If you have questions in the chat, I'd be happy to answer them. So on this topic of crafting marketing strategy, what questions might you have?
Looks like we have a lot of people to add to our Friday list. So
that's pretty
awesome.
fun. I better make those messages good ones, since I said how much I love to write them. It's fun to see all the engagement here. One of the things I noticed is that Ted said the only marketing activity he loves is doing readings and everything else is painful. And I guess at this time when, you know, there aren't actual readings, that could be really difficult. Okay, so I'll let you ask me the questions.
Yeah, it looks like there's a couple. So Ted asked, which tactics and strategies more than pay for themselves?
That's a really great question. And Ted, it's really hard to answer. I think it depends upon what your goals are. Like, it depends upon what those metrics are that you're using. So purely from a money perspective, I think quite often you can't exactly track the revenue to the activity. So if you're purely thinking about marketing books, there aren't many book marketing activities, especially if you're paying someone to help you, where you're going to make enough money from the activity to make it up in book sales. So we're coming from this perspective of supporting business book authors. Most of the time, business book authors use their book as a calling card or a credibility piece, and the revenue that they can drive is related to teaching or training or consulting. So I think for every author, which tactics and strategies are the best choice is really difficult to determine, but you really have to start with, what are you trying to achieve? What does success look like for you? Who is your target audience? And, you know, for all the different authors on today's call, there could be a different answer to which tactics and strategies to choose.
Thank you. Anne asked, what do you mean by use milestones to re-enter the conversation?
So this is a book marketing related tactic. So a lot of times what will happen is people have a marketing plan for their book at the time of launch. And they have a lot of activity and investment and energy when the book comes out. And then they stop any marketing related to that title. So some milestones that you can use are the anniversary of the book coming out, or if the book relates to a specific calendar event. So a lot of books, could be a great graduation gift or a great Mother's Day gift. So you can use those calendar milestones as a means to talk again about your book and to share the value of that book with the world.
Thank you. Victoria says, my number one challenge is consistency. Is that simply a matter of setting up automated systems, or is it more than that?
That's an excellent question. I think one of the problems that happens with consistency is overcommitment. And so one way to become more consistent would be to lower your expectations on what that consistency looks like. So if you're having trouble maintaining a weekly email newsletter, potentially scale that back to monthly or bi-monthly, and then nail consistency on that lower frequency. And as you get energized, you can add in more. Automated systems are a huge help. Sometimes having an assistant, even if it's a volunteer assistant, can help. So looking at what other resources you might have and be able to implement. We have time for a few more, I believe.
All right. So Gabrielle asks, do you have any more suggestions to building a contact list? And just a note that she loves your presentation.
Oh, thank you so much. We do have quite a number of suggestions as it relates to building an email list. Gabrielle, without knowing what type of content you have in the world, I can't give you any specific suggestion, but one of the most often used tools that we have is called a lead magnet. And the idea is that you have a resource of value, whether that's a webinar like this one, whether that's a content piece that you put out into the world, and you gate that so that in order for people to receive that resource, they have to share their email address. That's a way to build your list. Now, one concern might be that people download the free resource and then leave your list, which might be true. So you need to think not only about how to get people on the list, but you also want to think about how to keep people on the list, which means continuing to show up with value and interesting ideas. So I hope that helps. I don't know if we have an email list webinar on our plan, Aubrey, but that might be a good one to cover on an upcoming webinar.
I think we do have that for later in the year for building your email list.
Okay, super.
So let's see.
I think we can only take one more and then I'll share the final slides.
Yes. So this one is from Sheila, and she is asking about emphasizing giveaways, and do they actually do any good for sales? And if you have any alternatives that might be better than giveaways.
Sure, that's a great question, Sheila. I don't know if you attended our Amazon ads webinar last month. Amazon ads can be a great way of getting additional exposure for your book. I do think that giveaways are helpful, and the reason is because I think about book giveaways as books as seeds. And the more books you have in the world, the more possibility for people who love the book to talk about the book with others. Another alternative would be like an ebook campaign where you lower the price of your digital book as a means of getting some additional sales and exposure for your title. And I think that can work quite well for fiction books. If you haven't tried that, Sheila, we do have a podcast episode that specifically addresses that tactic. So we can, I don't know if we can grab that quickly and put it in the chat, but we certainly can share that with you later, Sheila, if you'd like. What I'm going to do is keep the chat from today's call. If you have some specific questions, I will do my best to reach out to you personally. And I'm going to share my email address in a minute and would be happy to make myself available if I can be of greater service. And
yeah, we can share the podcast episode too in the email that we send out.
Perfect. So as we wrap up the half hour, one of the things I'd like to make sure that you hear from me today is that marketing can be so worthwhile if you start from the place of thinking about the value that you want to share with the world. And when you choose to invest in building your online influence through marketing, oh, I edited this and I messed it up, so we'll fix it before we send out. So through marketing yourself and sharing value with others, then you are choosing to create the biggest possible impact for your mission and your message. Here are a couple of possible next steps for you. We do have a number of custom strategies that we do for our clients, and there's a web page that we just launched called strategy.weavinginfluence.com that outlines those custom strategy packages if you want to invest in a one-on-one initiative or endeavor with our team to craft marketing strategy, either for yourself, for your book, or for your organization. The other thing is that we are going to host a digital marketing action boot camp. It will be 8 hours of training with me. So think about this half hour and then think about times 16, and it will be virtual, and it will be a limited number of people who can register. It is for pay, but we'll also make sure that you get a link to that digital marketing action bootcamp sign up, and we have a planned agenda so you can see the topics that we intend to cover in the bootcamp. I would love to have you join that bootcamp and work with me face-to-face in writing your own marketing strategy. So for either of those two offers, or if you have some questions that we didn't have time to get to today, you can feel free to email me at any time, Becky@weavinginfluence.com. And then I'm also going to put up my social media links. I would love to connect with you. That phone number may not be the best phone number today. We'll fix that before we send out the slides. You can find me on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram, and my name without is the same on Instagram as on Twitter. It's the same in all the places. So thank you so much for investing part of your afternoon with us, and we will be back next month. Our topic next month is around content marketing and content libraries, and we're going to talk about the value of repurposing your content in order to be more effective and efficient in your marketing plans. So thanks so much, and we'll hopefully see you next time on the next webinar.
Thank you.